Chris Matthews on MSNBC was discussing some recent pictures released by Hillary Clinton, and in the pictures, she's holding her granddaughter. So a conversation broke out about the issue of age in politics. Well, he ended up catching his conservative guest in some awesome hypocrisy.
Yeah, and I think that's one of her biggest problems is, she's going to be 70 when she runs. That's always an issue when John McCain runs that old, when Ronald Reagan was that old. I mean, it's an issue that comes up. I think that you're right. She's trying to define this in the most positive terms, and we'll see how it works.
How does it come up?
How does it come up?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question.
You just brought it up.
I think Republicans are going to have to tread very carefully on this because for them, you have to be able to appeal to that voting bloc, older women who vote,
right.
And many times vote for Republicans, so they have to handle it very carefully.
Let's talk about what you just said because you're a good guy, so I'm not going to jump on you like I normally would. There's somebody who just said what you did, but I could argue that you've just stepped into a trap. Just a minute. Mitt Romney is basically a grandfather of many grandchildren, and it has never come up that this was a negative. He's about the same age as Hillary. Look at his family there. Look at that progeny there.
Right.
That's a statement.
Right.
That's never been an issue. Jeb Bush is a grandparent. The idea that Hillary's a grandparent, why would that be a potential negative?
Well, I'm not.
Or her age, even. Just generally speaking, her age. Why is her age an issue with her rather than with her peers?
Anytime you're around the 70 age barrier, it gets to be an issue, and that's just.
Why did it never come up with Mitt Romney?
Well,
he was running as of a week ago.
He's not.
A week ago, he was running.
He's not near 70. He's not going to be 70 when he runs. She's going to be 70. I think that's a big age difference there.
He's 6 months older than her.
They're right.
Let me absorb that, John Ferry.
Well, he's not
6 months. Okay, he was running a week ago, and it never came up.
So this is a really interesting conversation because when you pay attention and you really watch the different elections closely, oftentimes you find this very casual, nonchalant, sneaky form of sexism. And it manifests itself in ways like this, where for some reason we only talk about age when it's a woman involved. Oftentimes they bring up this issue of taking care of kids. How if it's a woman who has a career and she's dedicated to her career, people will still ask questions repeatedly about, well, when's she going to have time to take care of her kids? How's she going to take care of her kids? I don't understand it. Meanwhile, if it's a male who is in a relationship or married and he has kids, nobody ever brings up like, well, when's he going to find time to be with his kids? I don't understand. He's going to have to raise his kids, right? So it's this, everybody kind of defaults in their own mind to the 1950s setup where it's like, okay, the woman stays home and cooks the meals and cleans the house and raises the kids, and the man is out having a career and earning the money. It's like in all of our minds, it's this thing that's still there. It's like the root of the conversation on these issues. And people just default back to that. And look, I don't think it's not nefarious. Like when people speak about these things, I don't think they mean bad by it and they're all just bad people. But it's almost like you have to self-monitor and you have to watch yourself because those assumptions are largely bullshit nowadays. I mean, the idea that, you should question a woman about the situation with her age or her kids or what have you, and you let a man completely off the hook, it does show a double standard and an unfair double standard. And, by the way, also, there's a point to be made here about political double standards of Democrats versus Republicans as well, because Republicans do this all the time, where, take, for example, the issue of being a veteran. If there's a Republican candidate who's not a veteran, then they'll never discuss it. They'll never say anything about it, and it's just accepted. What do you mean? Of course we could vote for him. That's our candidate. That's our guy. But if it's a Democrat who's running for office and is not a veteran, they make it an issue. Like, oh, well, he's not even a veteran. So wait, you're changing the standard from your side versus our side. And with age, man, with age, Mitt Romney is ancient. Ronald Reagan was the oldest president in U.S. history, if I'm not mistaken. I believe I read that a while ago. I'll double check on that, but I'm pretty sure that's true. John McCain, when he was running, that dude is fucking ancient. He farts dust, and he has a health record that's longer than the Bible. He's had all these different surgeries and all these different issues. You know, people were talking about how the actuary tables show that there's a pretty good chance he would die if he was in office for 8 years and he was elected in 2008. So I think the main point here is be consistent, right? If you have a standard when it comes to age or being a veteran or not being a veteran or what have you, just be consistent. Because when you're not consistent on these issues and you just flip-flop based on whether it's a Democrat or Republican or man or woman, you look stupid. Especially because today we have these things called video cameras and we have the YouTube machine where you can go and see the thing that you said 3 years ago versus the thing that you said today. And the final point I'll make is it fair to question the age of a candidate? Is that ever fair? And I'm posing this as a legitimate question. I think yes, but only for the margins, okay? So, in other words, it's by and large, it's not like it should be a non-issue in the overwhelming majority of cases, right? But I think it only becomes a legitimate issue when you talk about super extremes. So, for example, if you talk about, obviously you can run for president if you're this young in America, but if somebody runs for some sort of office and they're like 15, it's like, oh, I might have to disqualify you simply based on that. And on the other end of the spectrum, I would say, and I'm just making up this rule right now as I go along in my head, for me personally, it would become a factor I weigh if you're like 80 years old or above. Because the numbers are kind of staggering when it comes to dementia in old age. It's 50% of people above age 85 experience, a loss of cognitive function. So at like age 8, if you're running for president and you're 80, that's why I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to have to weigh this into consideration here. But if you run in your 70, if you run in your 74, it's like, okay, I mean, look, as long as I agree with your policies, then it's whatever. So again, I think it's a legitimate issue, but it's only a legitimate issue on the extreme margins.